You don't want to know. It's real nasty. Hey folks, I'm Jacob, this is Weebservations, now with about 80% less hair, can you believe it? I look like a normal human being and not a weird hobo, and 65% more screen. I'm hoping that this is going to help both cut down on editing time, be more visually appealing, and just avoid copyright woes on YouTube. Changing my filming setup, but yeah, if you're wondering why it took so long for me to, it took 2 months after the last video to make the next one, I was trying to figure out all this, how to make it work, how to just take things a step up here on YouTube. I want to finish off Attack on Titan, the final season, part 1, the first half of the final season with a bang, so here we go. As always, you can skip to this time code right here if you just want to see my reaction to the final episode of the first half of the final season of Attack on Titan. But to just sort of recap what happened between Gabby's day out and now, a couple things I learned, I guess, about the episodes that I hadn't picked up on the first time. Some of you helpfully in the comments pointed out to me that Sasha's last words, which I was kind of disappointed in, were maybe a little bit more, I guess, depthful, a little bit more thoughtful than I thought they were at first glance, because when she was saying meat, she was saying, like, Niku, her last words, were, they thought, I guess, thinking of, like, some feast that she was never going to get to have. And people pointed out that she might have actually been saying Nicolo rather than Niku, the name of the chef who prepared delicious lobsters for her and her friends back on Paradise Island. And I think that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of clever, and I wonder if that's something that Eren did or didn't realize when he started laughing, kind of adding to this whole like series of misunderstandings between the crew as they begin to, a greater and greater rift opens up between them as Eren starts his own crusade completely apart from the rest of the gang. And so they really think he was heartless, laughing at Sasha's last words, when in truth, maybe he knew what was up, or maybe he didn't and was just kind of despairing at it all, who knows. But the odds are pretty good that rather than dreaming of a feast in her final moments, Sasha was actually dreaming of her would-be boyfriend. So shed a tear for the potato girl. You know, they done her dirty. It's a shame. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's move on to the bigger picture. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. Eren has just ripped open a box of Oops All Genocide and poured himself a gigantic bowl to lead us into the final act of the story. It's really, really hard to get your head where Eren's head is at this point. It seems like what he has taken away from this whole, I've learned that the world is cruel and you're not going to achieve your dreams and your family isn't who you thought they were, and your, belief in freedom of humanity isn't what you thought it was. It seems like he's kind of coalesced that all down into the best thing that can be done for anyone in this world is just to not be born in the first place. And he has decided that he is going to use his powers to forcibly euthanize his entire race. This is a hot potato that can't really be talked about in realistic terms without getting extremely dark extremely quickly. So we're gonna stick to the sort of the broad fantastical aspect of this, where nobody is being forcibly sterilized in the conventional sort of way, and Eren is just going to like make a wish upon a star that nobody that he knows or is related to, or it's spread across the world. His entire race is just not going to be able to have children anymore. Now, this is actually not what the people who follow him believe that they're doing. The Jaegerists, led by Floch, believe that they are creating some kind of new Eldian empire, right? And Eren and Zeke's real plan is to make their race infertile using the Jaegerists as sort of a front to push back against the military who would seek to stop him in this endeavor. So the idea is just for Zeke and Eren to physically reunite, which is actually going to be kind of difficult at this point, especially after Zeke blew himself up in the episode prior to this one. It's extremely redundant. I'm rusty, if you can't tell. But it's interesting to me that the Jaegerists party is driven by a motivation that is so opposite to what Eren and Zeke actually want, and yet both motivations are equally reprehensible. You have this reckless, violent, revolutionary sort of hope for the future that's basically based on a vengeful desire to eradicate the races that are inferior to Eldians and have persecuted them. That's Floch and the Jaegerist sort of side of things. And the real motivation of Eren Zeke, which is the opposite of hope, is absolute despair, a desire to return to nothingness. That the best any Eldian can actually hope for is to never have been born at all. So it's kind of interesting that these two forces that are uniting could not be more separate, and yet could not be more terrible. Like it's like everything good is in between, and you have these two extremes of horrible supremacist dictatorship and despairing, all-consuming cultural destruction. Really a bizarre combination that certainly wouldn't exist in real life, but is interesting to see play out in fantasy. So Floch is the only member of the Jaegerists that we can really identify by like a name and identity and history, and the rest of them are kind of faceless, which is good. All the characters that we've come to like, thankfully, are not drinking that Kool-Aid, but he is emblematic of the, I guess, the indoctrination and radicalization that was kind of naturally going to evolve out of the whole Sasageo pledge your hearts thing that Attack on Titan is built on. And it is interesting to see like that side of the fan base, which I do think is a minority when people talk about like Attack on Titan being secretly right-wing or whatever, however you want to slice it. Attack on Titan is a giant multimedia franchise that is a lot of things to a lot of people, and it does not strike me as a particularly... I've talked about this before, but if it is fascist, it is not very successful as a fascist piece of work, because it's too nuanced and complicated and self-interrogating and speaks to too many people along too many political lines for me to really see it that way. But Floch himself and the Jaegerists are undoubtedly a fascist movement, and it is bizarre to see in the show that whole like pledge your hearts salute being turned into just being turned into what people I think accused it of being in certain circles, literally sort of a Nazi symbol. It takes me back to an Anime Expo where there was a premiere of the third season, I think it was. I was there, and Yuki Kaji, after it was over, stood in front of, he plays Eren, stood in front of a whole crowd of people, all these weebs in the biggest room that they have at AX for premieres and such, and got them all to do the salute. And he was, everyone devote your hearts to Sasageo, and everybody did it. And I know there were some people like screaming and like crying. They were so excited. And I remember being in that room and thinking, on the one hand, this is really cool. It's really cool to be here for this. This is exciting. And on the other hand, this is a little f***ed up because this is kind of a military salute. Like, it's a fantasy one, but it's bizarre to kind of stand in a room full of people, and being raised in mega churches and stuff like that, my alarm bells start going off anytime something like that happens. And fandom is not the same thing as religion, for as many people I guess have written think pieces along those lines. But in that moment, it kind of made me the dots did connect in my mind. It's like, oh, here's a bunch of anime fans doing a fictional like military salute and shouting "Devote your hearts to the cause," and now we've come full circle. It is actually a supremacist call to genocide now in story. So, how far we've come. All right, stepping away from Dickhead and the Jaegerists for a bit, let's talk about Eren himself. In the very uncomfortable and disheartening scene where he kind of gives his last conversation, I mean, hopefully they'll see each other again after this, but it's certainly treated as though it's a final serious powwow between this once trio of friends. Eren denigrates them and sort of pushes them aside because he's decided to fully embrace like the only virtue that means anything to him, or that he's kind of hanging all of his aspirations on, is freedom, is this idea of freedom. And he decides to separate himself from Armin and Mikasa by saying, "You are not free," for really stupid reasons. One, because Armin is a Titan carrier, and he has it's an excuse that doesn't hold water, because Eren is also a Titan carrier, and the Titan inside of him holds the memories of his father, not just like Bertolt or some stranger or whatever, but literally his dad. So, how much is he poisoned by his dad's will? It doesn't hold up. And of course, he tells Mikasa that she's a slave because of her Ackerman blood that compels her to protect the royal family and people connected to it. It's all a bunch of bullshit. It also calls into question, is his true motivation for this actually just trying to separate himself from Armin and Mikasa in a heroic way so that they won't be held to task or, like, compared to him, or basically, is he trying to put them at arm's length so that they won't be punished for anything horrible that he does? Is that his secret motivation? You know, hurt them to save them, the old classic thing that is highly inadvisable in real life, but makes for great drama in a big fantasy series like this. So I don't know if those are his real feelings, or sort of half his feelings, or if it's purely a front, but what I do know is that probably that thing of freedom is actually true to him in his mind. He thinks that he is in control of his own destiny, and he is the one, which is what makes this such a dictator-like authoritarian turn for him, that he gets to decide that everyone else doesn't get to create a future with children and offspring, doesn't get to continue their generations. So his expression of ultimate freedom is to take the freedom away from everybody else to continue their lineage. It's really twisted and messed up. But that said, it's a very realistic character turn for Eren. The kind of person that Eren is, this villain, this hero-turned-villain that's... his central motivation is so, on its face, obviously hypocritical and egotistic. It's very, very realistic. I feel like there's a lot of people in the world like Eren, and this whole freedom as the ultimate virtue thing is interesting to see interrogated by a story like this, because I live in a country, America, where, at least on the surface, freedom is seen as the ultimate virtue. And especially over this past year, when stuff like social accountability and, you know, societal obligations and group coordination have become more important than they have been in many years for the country, it really makes you kind of question that idea, that generally accepted idea that freedom is the ultimate virtue. And now seen in Eren's hands and how he characterizes it, it makes you question it even more. It's really interesting stuff. I like it a lot. The thing I don't like about it is, even though it's a very realistic character turn for Eren and it's very interesting, this is also not the story a lot of people signed up for. You know, you compare it to back at the beginning when we were supposed to rally around Eren as a hero, and I don't think there's anything wrong with turning the hero into a villain, but it does mean naturally that there's going to be a rift in your audience. There's going to be, there's going to be people who can't go there, who can't follow you into that turn of villainizing somebody that we wanted to love and were really on his side for a lot of the story. I would say it's on the one hand it is realistic and it is thought-provoking and it's very bold of a story choice, but it is also questionable if Isayama always intended this, or probably more likely he started with one story and realized that the character he created could not be a hero anymore, and, you know, to his credit, stuck with it, but it's going to, I think, irreversibly tarnish early parts of Titan for people. You can't go home again. You know, maybe you can't watch the beginning of the show anymore knowing that this is where it's gonna go. Alright, I'm gonna try not to dwell on this for very long, but we need to talk about the poo-poo chair. Zachary's poop torture chair. I knew that this was gonna come back because you don't put something... Attack on Titan doesn't really do rabbit trails. It just doesn't. It's very set up and payoff and everything is connected kind of story. So I knew, like, Zachary's poop torture chair had to come back. It had to be relevant in some way. But this is the weirdest setup and payoff, I think, in all of Attack on Titan. I think Isayama himself knew, I have to bring this back, but I don't know exactly how. What will I do with it? Eureka! The Jaegerists put a bomb in it, and Zachary had it brought to his office for sentimental reasons, I don't know, as part of an archival he was doing, and they just decided to load it up with explosives and it killed him. I guess poetic justice, he was killed by the weird, creepy torture machine that he came up with, but I of all the ways I thought this was gonna come back, that was not one of them, so... Okay, moving on. Oh, Gabby. Gabby. So, I said previously that I was happy that the story wasn't just beating the pus out of her for her childhood naivete and rage, basically making an example out of her in a way that it couldn't do exactly with Eren. You know, I thought the story was maybe gonna kill her or really, really torture her. And it seemed like that wasn't happening, but we got a pretty big face full of pain and misery in Gabby's Reformation episode. I guess on the upside, it was a lot. The whole thing with Niccolo, Sasha's dad, Gabby's new friend, all like being furious with her and wanting to kill her, like, it was brutal. And the best part of that episode, although it was very uncomfortable and painful to watch, was Sasha's father's surprisingly, I guess, thoughtful and thematically fitting take on the whole thing, where, you know, he accepted that his daughter had wandered in the woods too long, had chosen the path that would have also killed Gabby, and it's kind of illustrating that Gabby, I joked that she was like a mix between Eren and Hanji, but in truth, it seems like she's a mix of Eren and Sasha. And that Gabby is being spared, I hope, in the long run. I hope she doesn't die before the story's out. I'm thinking at this point she's definitely going to live, just the way that it's going so far. And if this is the most suffering that the story will pile on her, okay. But it was pretty rough, and I hope that this is the end of Gabby's suffering and that she can kind of move forward into being a more admirable and heroic character from here, because I really like Gabby, and I really feel bad for the ways in which the story necessarily at first needed to pile on her, but I hope her suffering has, for the most part, come to an end. She understands the weight of a life, the agony that death and murder causes to everybody involved with that person, the humanity of her enemy, that they are all, you know, the same kind of person, really, and that there is no righteous cause here, that war is just ugly, and that's it, and it's pointless. You know, she's learned her lesson, I think, and hopefully there are better days ahead for poor Gabby. And finally, probably most relevant to this final episode, we have Zeke. Poor Zeke. We got the full rundown on Eren's big brother here, and he is nothing like Eren. He's basically the polar opposite of Eren, Eren sort of was never comfortable with peace, and when he lost everything, his drive for retribution and justice kind of overshadowed the deeper, like, anger and entitlement and desire for ultimate freedom. I want it just because I want it. I want it because it's mine, because I should have the right to go wherever I want, and there should be no borders holding me back. And Zeke is just the opposite of that. He didn't care about any of that. He was a failure as a soldier. He was a very gentle, thoughtful, kind of bookish kid who, even from a young age, he understood, like, my grandparents are telling me one thing, my dad's telling me something else. I don't think either of those things is the full story. And he just he's curious. He wants to know, he's like Armin. He wants to know the answers to the things that have driven humanity to such dark and dangerous ends. He wants to know, really, the source of these woes and how to kind of cut off strife at the root. He's a very gentle, passive kind of guy, or he would have been. Obviously, he's anything but passive at this point in his life now. And unlike Eren also, who doesn't really give a shit what anybody thinks of him, even his friends, like, he can't really be told what to do, even by the people who love him dearly. Zeke really, really, really bases his self-worth heavily on other people in his life, the relationships with others, which is why I think he's still so haunted by giving up his father. He chose the dad who was more like him, you know, who just wanted to read books and play baseball. He chose that dad, but I think it kind of forever haunts him that in order to live with one loved one that he chose, he had to give up his actual parents. He had to rationalize in his head, well, okay, they don't really love me, they're just using me. And of course, it's more complicated than that. As a kid, he didn't understand that, like, sure, they did love him, they had bigger designs and didn't, you know, it's an ugly situation all around, and is certainly, you can kind of question whether or not Zeke did the right thing in turning his parents over to the Gestapo or whatever the hell is going on in the show. But in the line between Zeke and Eren, I think we have what is the attempted overall theme of the story. As far as I can tell, I don't know how it ends. We still have one half of a season left to go that we'll get next year, but here's where I think thematically it's going so far. I think Hajime Isayama is interrogating his own love of military history and iconography and stuff like that he kind of started with in the show, and I think that he is saying that it is very easy to get behind revolutionary ideology and iconography, especially when there is widespread injustice in the world. There are many things that are appealing about the idea of revolution and worldwide conquest or whatever have you, but the material reality of actual revolution is complicated and by nature never just. It is never, you are never correcting, this is his perspective now. I'm not saying this is what I think, but I think what he is getting at is the idea that revolution and giant societal change is not by nature just, especially when it entails violence and combat. That the things that must be done to actually change the world are so inhumane that they will change the people who do them, like Eren, beyond the ability to even live in the peaceful society that they claim to be trying to create. So we know that Eren's number is up because he only has a few years left to live because he has his Titan powers, so that's one thing, but even if he was to survive this, there would be no place for him in the world that he created, and I don't know if he's going to succeed, I hope not, in his Eldian sterilization plan, as f***ed up as it is. I don't know if he's actually going to succeed in that and what the story's perspective on that will be, but I do think that the story is saying, like, well, even if you think this would solve, that this would cause world peace or at least end the Titan, scourge, it is, do the ends justify the means? No. Do you have to do it anyway? Maybe. We'll see. I think ultimately maybe what he is getting at is that maybe revolutions can change the world for the better, but they are vile and unjust in practice, and there's not really any, you can't justify them. It's just gonna happen, and it's gonna happen based on the will of people like Eren who want those things kind of absent of any. I don't think it really had anything to do with injustice. I think this desire, this raging desire for ultimate freedom and freedom from Titans is kind of exists outside of the rest of the world, and that's just always who Eren was gonna be. Alright, that's all my thoughts on all the Attack on Titan that has come up to this point. I'm exhausted, but we still have one last episode to finish out the season, so without further ado, let's get into Attack on Titan, episode 75. Not the final episode of the final season, but the last one we're getting this year. Let's go. Come get your boy! He's in chunks all over the field. You got about 80 pieces of hostage that you need to go gather before Eren finds it and ends your entire race with a boop. Now there's an idea. Like, I'm assuming Zeke survived that, but maybe he, this could go in interesting directions if Zeke dies here, and Eren has to figure out an entirely different way, because otherwise we'd have, a really short path to the end, right? These guys just touch, and that solves the problem. So maybe he's actually gonna die here. We got his whole backstory and everything. It's not like there's a whole lot left to... I don't know. It's possible. I'm not sure... Another Titan eats him, some new character that we haven't... That would be weird. That doesn't make sense. Oh! No! 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 Oh! No! Oh, I don't like that. I didn't think that was gonna happen. It's disgusting. And we cut right from that to eating steak. Get it? It's gross. Armbands again. It's almost like armbands are bad and represent subjugation and not freedom at all. You damn Jaegerists. You hippotwits. You're all hippotwits. Well, right now he's a baby in the womb of a giant Titan. With all this womb imagery. Attack on Titan. There wasn't a lot of it in the beginning, but as we've gotten near the end, Isayama is like, how do I shock? I'm running out of ways to shock people. I know, uteri. Just throw out a bunch of wounds. Stop defending him! Jesus, this woman. I mean, like, I get that that's her defining character trait at this point, but, like, girl, you need a 12-step to get over that schmuck. He ain't worth it. Has she actively smelled like potatoes? I think it's kind of a low blow. Potatoes don't smell like anything, you know. You salt and butter them up, some chives, some sour cream, yeah. Then you've got a nice scent going. But oh, what the f? Oh, wait, what? Potatoes don't smell like anything. Is the only point That's a wonderful last words to hear. Ah, that sounds extremely noble. You know, when I hear the word euthanization, I think, what a kind, noble, forward-thinking plan that is. Oh, hey, it's Peak. I remember Peak. Yay, she's back. She's not dead. I am happy. So finally, somebody with some goddamn sense around here. Last time Gabby aimed a rifle at somebody didn't go so well, so you suggest something a little less triggering. A candlestick, maybe. A pitchfork. She didn't get to use a pitchfork last time. I think she would do really well with a pitchfork, but a rifle, you know, it's bad memories, bad vibes. It is really hard to know what Peak's play here would be. She's really, really out of her. When you're asking Gabby for help to pull off your plan, you know, you don't have a whole lot on your side on this one. Gabby, we've been over this. It's not how it works. Gabby, no! God damn it, Gabby! Are we human or are we dancer? It's a very deep question. It's been kind of dropped since, for the rest of the season. Peak, turn around. It's been kind of dropped since the beginning of the season, but the fact that Titans aren't actually that big of a deal now that people are developing gigantic tanks and nukes and stuff is interesting. I don't think it justifies euthanization of an entire race, but at the same time, it is clear that, like, Titans as a weapon, not the most useful thing once you have, like, our equivalent of modern-day weaponry. Oh, yeah, thanks for reminding us of that plotline. Everybody's really... Isayama's like, here's a couple of lesbians, and everyone's like, yay! And they like, one of them's dead, and the other one gets bred for the plot. Oh... Season 2 was, you know, the most warm and fuzzy Attack on Titan was ever gonna get. After that, it's just a bunch of dour nonsense. It'll be like a Romulus and Remus. Please don't look into the fact that ancient Rome is usually adored by fascists. I'm just saying, Isayama, you're playing with fire in a lot of this imagery. He always has been, but at least he's constantly self-interrogating himself about it. It's what makes the story so interesting. Oh, Jesus Christ. I hope Armin is faking it. You better be faking that. I think he is. Like, it's just not really in his nature. It's a very convoluted scene where he got whacked with a wine bottle. I thought that was going to be irrelevant. I thought it was going to be just the way in which they reveal that, they reveal the whole plan, because Niccolo tries to save him. He's like, get that out of his mouth. Maybe it's still relevant. Maybe Falco's having some of that in his body is still going to be relevant to the plot. That would be interesting. Curious. You don't want to know. It's real nasty. Yeah, peek. Yeah. F you, Eren. Eat my ass. Eat my big cart titan ass. Num 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 num. Forgot about me, didn't you? I forgot about him. Oh, so angry. So angry all the time. There are more than 2 options, Gabby. There are a lot of options that are not just serve your oppressors or genocide your race so you won't be oppressed anymore. There's a lot in the middle here. Alright, here we go. Here we go. Alright. Oh, hey! I completely forgot about Reiner. I swear to God, I almost forgot his name. I was like, that guy, you know, the armored one. Reiner. Rematch number 4? 5? I don't care. Fight each other. Fight. Alright, that was Attack on Titan, final season, episode 75. Before I get into a rundown of what I thought of the whole episode, real quick, here are my wonderful Patreon supporters who've made this video and many others to come possible. If you sign up, just $5 on Patreon gets you 24-hour early access to all my videos, polls and nomination requests for future stuff. I'm just going to rely entirely on my patrons for the direction of new content in the future, so if you want to have a say in what kind of videos I make, you know, have at it. And also, of course, you get your name in the credits right here. And so yeah, thank you so much to all my Patreon supporters. You guys mean the world to me. You really keep me going in this very, very difficult YouTube landscape of talking about Japanese cartoons. So, anywho, obviously that was a pretty talk-heavy, dialogue-heavy episode. It wasn't really an explosive, exciting finale, more of a tease for the real final act of the story that we're gonna get sometime in 2022. But I'm gonna start with what we're gonna compliment sandwich this. I like that all the characters have continued to be complicated and nuanced. You can kind of see where nobody feels like they're just being used as a peg in the story. Even the kids, like Gabby and Falco, stay true to their perspectives in every scene, and you really understand where everybody is coming from. And that's good. Yeah, compliment sandwich here. Let's talk about some stuff that I didn't like. I am getting the distinct impression from that episode that even though I don't think Eren's whole euthanization plan is going to go through, I do think, however, that the story is working a little hard to try and justify his perspective. The real big tip-off was while they were in the jail cell, Jean said, well, if he's not insane, if he hasn't totally lost his mind, and we can tell that Eren is sane, however you want to look at him, he is in a focused and clear sense of mind going forward. If he's not lost his mind, then whatever he's doing, he must have a good reason for it. And I'm like, no, that's not guaranteed, but I know you are saying that because that is something that I think the story kind of wants to impress upon us, that there is some justification to what Eren is doing, and there is some rightness to it, and maybe he will in some way succeed. That is the impression I am getting, is that before all is said and done, that Eren's friends will rally around him. And because I don't think they're going to be able to change his mind, I am afraid that Jean, Connie, at least like some of these people are going to support the euthanization plan in some way, which, look, whether or not you agree with how it is specifically being employed in this very broad fantasy scenario, it's still really, really f***ed up and dodgy to justify and heroize in any way something called a euthanization plan. That, like, I know that in this context it's not as bad as it sounds, but it is still pretty bad, and I'm uncomfortable with the idea of trying to anti-hero Eren in any way. And the story, it's tiptoeing right up to that line. It's playing with it. On the positive side, it is definitely not fully trying to retroactively make Eren the good guy either. Eren he's gonna die. This is a heel turn. There are complexities to this story that are being fully followed through on. Overall, Attack on Titan is still a tremendously entertaining and engaging story. It's regardless of how you feel about its politics and how it's handling the nuances of things, well, poorly. For me, it's about a half and half. It's like, oh, I like that. Oh, I hate that. Oh, I like that. Oh, I hate that. But I always feel strongly. And, as a storyteller, I think that's, maybe the highest compliment you can give someone is like, well, I gave a shit. I cared about your story a lot. Whether I was happy or sad, I cared about what you had to say. So until next year, that's it for Attack on Titan, and we'll just see what he has planned for the very end of Eren's quest for ultimate freedom. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, please. It really helps the channel out. Leave a like and leave a comment on what you would like to feed the algorithm babies so that their hive mind may continue to make this channel healthy and strong. Sayonara, bye-bye. I'll see you next time.